Greetings, R. Frederick Riddle here with another episode of Christian News and Views. This is episode 125, and today is Monday. I want to look at today a case that involves Harvard University and its opposition to the government. This goes back a little ways, but let's take a look at it. Despite receiving hundreds of millions of dollars in federal funding each year, Harvard University faces intense scrutiny from the U.S. House Committee on Oversight and Government Reform because of alleged civil rights law violations. Under leadership from Chairman James Comer and Chairwoman Elise M. Stefanik, the committee formally requested Harvard President Dr. Alan M. Garber supply thorough documentation and communications about the university's policies and practices. Harvard's decision to decline a settlement proposed from the General Services Administration, along with the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and Education, sent on April 11th, 2025, triggered the investigation. The proposed settlement is intended to ensure Harvard University's compliance with civil rights legislation. Dr. Garber told the Harvard community in a public statement on April 14, 2025, that fulfilling these obligations would push the university to give up its independence or its constitutional rights. The committee rejected their position in its letter and declared, no matter how entitled your behavior is, you have no right to violate the law. Harvard University obtained $686 million in federal funding in fiscal year 2024, which made up about 68% of its total sponsored revenue, according to the committee's letter. Despite having a vast $53.2 billion endowment and generating $2.4 billion in revenue during the same fiscal year, the university received this funding. Harvard must follow civil rights laws, including Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, because it receives substantial federal funding, and this act disallows discrimination based on race, color, or national origin. Harvard dismissed the proposed settlement agreement that demanded multiple organizational changes, including government and leadership reforms. This includes the clear lines of authority, empowering tenured professors, and limiting the influence of individuals perceived as prioritizing activism over academics. Merit-based hiring and admissions reforms, addressing alleged preferences based on race, color, sex, religion, or national origin. International admissions reforms, focusing on the admittance of students whose views may be contrary to those of the United States, such as support for terrorism or anti-Semitism. Viewpoint diversity in admissions and hiring, including the abolishment of criteria that functions as ideological litmus tests. Reforms to programs with records of bias, specifically mentioning anti-Semitism, and the response to the October 7, 2023 terrorist attacks against Israel and subsequent campus protests. Discontinuation of diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI, programs, including the dismantling of DEI offices, policies, and related restrictions on speech. Student discipline reforms, emphasizing consistent and impartial application of policies and disallowing organizations that advocate for violence, anti-American views, terrorism, anti-Semitism, or other illegal activities. Whistleblower protections, ensuring procedures and safeguards for individuals reporting wrongdoing. Transparency and monitoring regarding foreign gifts, cooperation with immigration officials, and the Student and Exchange Visitor Program, or SEVIS. The Joint Task Force to Combat Anti-Semitism responded to Harvard's settlement rejection by freezing $2.2 billion in grants and $60 million in contract values allocated to the university. The committee's letter highlights Harvard's discriminatory practices throughout history by mentioning both its quotas against Jewish students and its defense of race-sensitive admissions during a recent Supreme Court case. The committee expressed concerns about Harvard's substantial foreign funding, which shows over $894 million received from foreign governments between 2014 and 2019, while surpassing $151 million from January 2020 to October 2024. The committee brought attention to a study that found that foreign funding increases correlate with rising anti-Semitism at universities such as Harvard. The committee highlighted possible Title IX violations of the Education Amendments of 1972 alongside Title VI concerns through reports that show men competing in women's athletic events and using women's facilities at Harvard. Harvard must submit its complete collection of documents and communications between January 1st, 2023 and today to the committee by May 1st, 2025. The committee asked for every internal communication about the different reform areas defined in the settlement proposal. The committee maintains the authority to conduct face-to-face interviews with Harvard staff members, including President Garber. Harvard University now faces intensified federal examination of its adherence to civil rights laws. The university's federal funding and future operational policies may face significant changes due to this outcome. I would point out this is part of my opinion, I would point out that the $53 billion they received as an endowment, that represents designated funds for different activities and things of this nature. So you can't really think of that as their overall, but part of their overall budget is being designated for different things, and they were required by law to provide that money to those services. They can't divert it. Now, aside from that, the article I just read to you barely referenced a Supreme Court decision that should have been mentioned in more detail, so I will. On June 29th, 2023, the Supreme Court issued a decision in Harvard that, by a vote of 6-2, reversed the lower court ruling. The reason there was one missing is one of the Supreme Court justices just recently, I don't know if her name is in this article or not. Her last name is Jackson. And she recused herself because she had been associated with Harvard, and that she did the right thing, not criticizing her at all. She did what was right. Wouldn't have made much difference no matter which way she voted, because the final vote was 6-2. It reversed all the lower court rulings, which Harvard had won. In the majority opinion, Chief Justice John Roberts held that affirmative action in college admissions is unconstitutional. Because of the absence of U.S. military academies in the cases, the lack of relevant lower court rulings, and the potentially distinct interests that the military academies may present, the court, limited by Article 3, did not decide the fate of race-based affirmative actions in military academies. So what is my opinion? Well, for starters, the Supreme Court is the highest court in the land. So when it overturns lower courts, it means the Supreme Court's decision is law until it changes its mind. Now, the Supreme Court does and has changed its mind in the past. Based on this decision, it is my opinion that the Trump administration is spot on. Harvard is in violation of civil rights law unless they have fixed the problem the Supreme Court noted. I have seen nothing that would suggest they have done anything. In fact, what I've seen and what I've heard is there's no evidence they've done anything. Harvard has a rich history throughout the history of the United States, but its former status as one of the better schools in the land does not justify thumbing its nose at the court. Now, I use the word former, and somebody might jump on me on that. Harvard was originally, I could be wrong on this, but I believe Harvard was initially founded based on biblical foundation, even teaching men to go into the ministry. Over a period of time, Harvard has rejected and gone away from their foundations. And so that's why I use the word former. When it stuck to its original foundations, whether I'm right or wrong about the spiritual end of it, they did depart from their former stands, their former foundational principles. And so that's when they were great. So when you leave those former principles, you're pretty much saying, well, all that greatness that we had doesn't count anymore. They want to have their pie and eat it too. They want to give away what made them great and still consider themselves great. Well, I'm not buying that one. So Harvard has a rich history, but they cannot thumb their nose at the court, the highest court in the land, simply because they want to be independent. As one committee member said, you may have independent thoughts as a person, but that doesn't give you the right to violate the law. The law is what gives you certain rights, and the law also gives you certain responsibilities. So they should be held accountable for their violations. So that's pretty much my view on that. What I really want you to think of is that this has been going on for years. And even before, they were doing all these things under previous administrations, both Republican and Democratic. It wasn't until 2023 that they decided to the government needed to do something about it. Now that 2023, at that point in time, it was still under Biden. So I don't know, that court case was not brought by Biden that I know of. Could have been, and if it was, and they were on the right side there. But I believe it was brought by a students or a student group that initially brought that case to the Supreme Court, and they ruled on it, and then there hasn't been much done since, until the Trump administration came in power, and they looked at it and they saw that first of all, there's nothing been done to correct what the Supreme Court had already said, and they found a whole lot more. And so this is a kind of a Harvard that needs a little bit of a comeuppance, if you will. They are so proud of their history. Again, a history they've kind of turned away from. They're so proud of their history and where they stand. I mean, they're head and shoulders above everybody. They put themselves at a moral level above everybody, including the Bible. And they need to be, they need a spanking is what they really need. They're acting like kids who know a little bit, but think they know everything. And so now they're in violation of the law. They have been found in violation of the law. And this is something that needs to be taken care of. This President Garber, I have no idea what he's going to do. But so far he's taken a self-righteous attitude on this whole subject. And it's going to be interesting when he makes a face-to-face appearance as to what happens. But I think the Trump administration is spot on this. You may have other thoughts, and if you have them, feel free to give them. Now, Do you like this channel? Well, if you do, I would like you right down below here. There is a place for you to subscribe to the channel, TR Independent Books. And when you do, you get this particular podcast, which is Christian News and Views, and you get my other podcast, which is meant for those who want to be a writer and so forth. It's called Becoming a Published Author is Fun, and it is. And I've had fun working with it. I give out free information, free. You can use it. You can use it. Usually you can use it right away, or at least you can start using it. And maybe there's some process involved or whatever. But you can, it's information that's out there that I'm giving you for free, and you can take it and use it. If you want to do it that way, do it yourself, then you can at least get started on it. This channel, both of these podcasts are sponsored by Basic Authors Training and Ministry Publishing, which are part of TR Independent Books. So that's the closest I get to advertising. I want, and I really want you to subscribe to the channel, and because when you do, it does encourage me. It encourages me to provide for you information, content, where I inform you, encourage you, and inspire you to be your very best, whether it is as a writer and as becoming a published author is fun, or whether it is as a American citizen and you just want to know the news from a Christian point of view. So that is it. That is what this particular episode is all about today, and I'm going to wish you a great day. I hope you had a great Easter, and now I hope to see you, or I'll be out there. Will you be there to see my episode, the next episode of Christian News and Views, to see what I have to talk about in that episode? See you there, and you have a great day.